Everybody
get up. It's time to slam now.
Wow.
It's that real jam going now. Welcome to the Space Jam. Do you dance? It's your chance. It's the Space Jam.
All right, ready?
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special episode of the Hyper Conscious Podcast. We were lucky enough to sit down with the creator of Free Recovery TV, Terrance McMahon. Terrance McMahon has a ridiculous story. Basically almost died because he was an alcoholic and his liver failed. He was on a list to get a liver and they didn't want to give him one because they thought he was still drinking, and he got to the point where he thought his whole life was wrong and he lived his whole life wrong. So Alan's going to tell you more because Alan knows him better because him and Alan are buddies.
Yes. So Terrance McMahon, T-Mac for short, has been a millionaire mentor of mine for about a year and a half now. He brought me down to Jacksonville, Florida to be on his TV show about a year ago. And we met at a book publishing seminar in Boston. So if you ever want incentive to go to a seminar, you're going to meet great people who are doing great things and great mentors. So there's a couple things we want to say about this episode. First and foremost, amazing episode. Thank you again, Terrance, for coming on. Tons and tons of value, but
There's always a but.
Yeah, I screwed up the audio because in the middle of the episode, I got excited like I do. I talk with my hands, and I hammered the mic cord basically out of the mic, and Kevin was kind of freaking out. If you watch on YouTube, Kevin's freaking out because he's looking at the laptop.
If you've never seen a panic attack in real life, that's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like. But we took the audio from the phone and kind of dubbed it in. It's not... Basically, Kevin and Terrance both sound great, and they talk most of the time, especially Terrance anyway. I just asked some questions for Terrance.
Basically, you guys, it's not up... Most of the episode is up to our level of quality, but there are parts where Alan asks questions where it doesn't sound that great. But luckily, Terrance added so much value that you can hear everything he says, and you can hear everything I say. Nobody listens to Alan anyway, so It's not that big of a deal.
So 22 minutes in... everything's perfect, and then I screw everything up.
Yes.
But then Terrance and Kevin are good.
Yes.
So what do we talk about? We talked about recreation. We talk about financial mastery because he worked in the financial services industry literally 25 years to the day.
Yes.
Which was very cool. We talk about health, addiction, leadership, leading in the wrong ways versus the right ways. It's an awesome episode. One of my absolute favorites. I say that with no hyperbole. So much value, especially because wealth creation and financial mastery is something that I think this world really needs. I couldn't
agree more. And recreation. He's big on recreation. Basically, that means he quoted that you don't have to be on your deathbed to like kind of take control of your life and live your life over.
Yeah.
So no matter where you are in your life, this is a good opportunity to hear somebody who thought his life was going to end, and that's what it took him to change. And you guys don't have to get to that point. So this is a great episode. We hope you enjoy it, and if you're trying to learn more about money and finance and all that, do not miss this one.
Yeah, do not miss this one, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye. No. Geographically. This is cool. So I would say make sure that pretty face is showing.
Yes, true.
They're going to want to see that fucking thing. They're going to want to see that fucking thing, Alan. That fucking face. You good?
Ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another special episode of the Hyper Conscious Podcast. As always, there is a cool story to how we get the guests on. A lot of times we'll talk about them previously in an episode and they'll just end up showing up. But I'm going to let Alan explain because Alan has the good story behind it and I'm just useless.
Yes, so I met T-Mac, Terrance McMahon, at a book publishing seminar in Boston, which was very cool. You and I had lunch. You took me out to breakfast a few times. Yeah. We had coffees together. Then I came on to your new TV show, Free Recovery TV, for an interview. I came down to Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah. How you doing today?
Doing good.
Yeah.
Great to be here. Good seeing you,
Kevin. We appreciate it.
Awesome.
So in our preamble, you basically just set my mind on fire by your passion about not settling and making the life that you want. So I've seen the video that Alan showed me about your story, but the listeners don't know much about you yet. What can you tell them tell them your story, and I can only imagine what they'll take from it. But if you can just go into your story that, from the video that we saw, and then we can touch upon maybe different topics throughout that.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So it's a long story because it's developing, but if I roll the clocks all the way back to when I was young, and I grew up in the western part of Massachusetts. I was my father was a professional baseball player who was my idol, and I grew up in a town called Pittsfield, which is known for baseball. I mean, there's a lot of great baseball players that came from Pittsfield, Mark Belanger and a few others. But I grew up in a town where it was big on baseball. It was also a big drinking town. It's called the Booze Belt. So that was my early connections. And one thing I tell people, the Chinese say, if you want to change the fruit, you need to change your root. And the roots are
interesting.
Your environment. I mean, so my early connections. My early connections was to a partying lifestyle, particularly as it went on into college, and went from one day experimenting with alcohol, and then that became a lifestyle. It manifested into college and beyond college, but I ended up not playing baseball. Obviously, I ended up playing the game of finance and business. So I went in the insurance business. I was a door-to-door insurance salesperson. So in 1991, 1992, I joined an insurance company, knocking on doors in Lowell, Massachusetts. So going door to door, highly stressful, incredibly difficult job, but I did it pretty well. But one of the ways, it was a ton of stress, ton of pressure, because it's commission-based sales. I had a little baby to feed, so I developed a rather unhealthy connection with dealing with that stress, going out with everybody, celebrating sales, and so it got out of hand, and we did it really well. It was highly functional. Got married, had a couple kids, and I ended up. One of the things I always did pretty well is I made the very difficult and complex thing quite simple. So I learned how to do a fair amount of marketing. I found myself running a large financial services company. We had 150 salespeople, and I was teaching people how to make money. That's what I did for most of my life. But also, I got connected to alcohol. I got connected to recreational drugs, and I had a 7-figure income. I had the life I thought I always wanted until I was gaining weight. I was getting lethargic. I was tired all the time. And I went into the hospital one night. What I thought was heart palpitations ended up being an acute liver failure. So I went from being a CEO of a large financial company, having a 7-figure income, to being labeled an alcoholic and put on the end of a liver transplant waiting list. So I literally needed someone else to die for me to live, and that's where my journey kind of changed. I thought it was a journey to doing what I wanted to do, to be seen as successful in the eyes of my father and my family, and trying to make a lot of money and be successful, quote unquote. And then it went just to pure survival, because if you're labeled an alcoholic and you're on a transplant waiting list, they don't want to give you a liver. They already ruined the one they gave you, that God gave you.
Yep.
So that's what happened. I went from there to trying to get a transplant, and I was declined from a couple hospitals, one notably in Boston. I don't want to mention their name, but it's the hospital that you'd want to go to if you were going to college. So, and my journey took me to Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, and I was saved by a miracle of a transplant. But I was the Mayo asked me to go to rehab to get my transplant, to get listed. So I went to Mayo Clinic, and I went to a recovery center to and I had already stopped drinking, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, I stopped the day they said no amount of alcohol is safe for you ever again. I quit that day.
Yep.
I did it without 12-step meetings. I did it without a rehab center. I show up to rehab 7 months. I hadn't had anything to drink. I could barely walk. I was jaundiced and I was full of fluid. It was pretty scary, but I found that it was just not a place that I connected with. They wanted me to say I was an addict. They wanted me to label myself an addict, say I had a disease, and tell me I had no cure, and the only cure would be to go to meetings, and that's just not something I connected with. And I know others have, but I don't believe that, and that's so at this point it's desperate because I'm down to like the wire. I had already said goodbye to everyone. I'm terminal, maybe 30 days left, if not less. My mother and I, she's 77. She was in Jacksonville with me. And we're just waiting. She was basically waiting for her youngest son to die. And the phone rang at night, and it was a prisoner had died in Alabama, and we were a match. And his liver was actually what's called high risk. So he had IV drug user and incarcerated. So my understanding is as many as 50 people passed in that organ by the time it got to me in Jacksonville. And
Interesting.
I took it, and it worked.
Wow. And it worked.
Yeah, so I went. I had already said goodbye to everybody, and life changed. Like instant. In an instant, I had like it was an interesting 6 months for sure.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah, that's overwhelming. My goodness.
So I mean, the rest of the story is I really didn't know what to do with myself, and I had sold my business. I had a pretty robust financial business in Boston and New England. It was actually in 7 states. And we had 50,000 customers. We were doing several $1 million in revenue, and I had to sell it kind of like in almost a fire sale situation. So
yeah.
I didn't have I had lost my identity, and it was interesting because through the journey to survival, which was interesting because when you have to survive from terminal illness, it's bad enough, but you're also fighting against the community and society that says don't give don't give that person to the organ. And had it been for the high risk organ, I probably would be gone. But my journey to survival turned into an epiphany. I was like, when I was at a meeting with my family. This is the family meeting and financial planning, which is what I did. And my specialty was estate planning, which is where you distribute your assets. 99 times out of 100, you're not there for that meeting.
Right.
Like I was. So I was in Boston, and at the hospital, my family was there, and I was moving piles of my money from my life to different people in different places or different organizations, like my kids and my mom and dad. I was going to pre-decease them, so I still had some things for them. Charity, churches, the boys club. I'm a club kid, YMCA kid, so I gave some money to the boys club, and then it occurred to me when it was all over, my brother Tim and I were just sitting there. I said, "Jesus, Tim, I think my whole life has been wrong."
Interesting.
That I am nothing. Like it wasn't. I thought my whole life was about collecting. When I thought I had everything I had, and then I know that also my fall from grace was quite public, and so there's no hiding what happened to me.
Right,
like you said, like anything you asked me if there's anything out of the realm of talking about it. There's not much that hasn't been told.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was at that moment and the defining moment in my life where I knew I had to recreate myself.
Yeah.
And I had some long nights. Believe me, because the hospital in Boston had told me I was drinking, and had told me that they wouldn't transplant me because they thought I was still drinking, and I wasn't. And I said I'm not drinking, and so they asked me to leave, and I did, and so I ended up in Florida. I went to an FBI
lie detector, right?
I had a lie detector test, and I passed
with flying colors.
Yeah, and
good.
And that's what that was kind of what happened, and so I had to recreate myself, and that meant a lot of things. That's kind of what my discovery was. My new journey is to recreation instead of what the industry is going to call recovery.
Yeah.
I think the journey starts at recovery, which is healing, and ends at a recreation.
You said your identity changed. Yeah. What is your identity now as opposed to what it was? You found your purpose in life.
Yeah.
What is your identity? What is your purpose? And how can somebody find it? Like whoever's listening, how can they find it without getting to that point in their life where it's find a new one or die?
Oh, that's a great question. There's lots of different ideas on what your purpose is, and I know that it's connections, and if you have bad connections, you're gonna have bad fruit. And
right.
When the Chinese say change the roots to change the fruit, and like if you stripped away all the non-essentials in my life, and the one thing I on top of having a destructive lifestyle, I had a heck of a lot of fun and had a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment and made money, and I've helped a lot of people. But if I stripped away all the non-essentials, that's what I would suggest someone do. Strip it down. If it's a just like they do an airplane, when they bring it into the hangar, they take it down. They literally take that whole airplane apart, and you can build that thing any way you want. What would be the one thing that you would do? What would be that one burning desire that you had all the choice in the world, all the direction is up to you. Where would that be? And what would it be? And for me, it was someone to teach people, and I wanted to show people, the concept of recreating, that you don't have to get into terminal illness and this rock bottom hopelessness and get into a world where you have the power, and because you have all the power in the world to make new connections, to establish a new environment. Your environment is your influencers. It's your connections and your outcomes. And the one thing you have a lot of control over is your own time. Like, who are you spending your time with? Who are the 90% of the battle, I believe, is influencers. I was talking about this with you earlier.
In the preamble, we talked about that.
You have control over who you give your time to.
Yeah. We appreciate yours, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. This is fun. I like doing this.
For sure.
Yeah. Beautiful thing. So I have a bunch of questions here written out. I really, really do. So there's a lot of different things that I want to talk about. First and foremost, people talk a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder. Yeah. I talk a lot more about post-traumatic growth, because I had a similar-ish story when it came to being in sales, the sales lifestyle, how alcohol is a large part of that whole culture. You said in that video that you had sent us, and you and I have talked about this in length, you socialized for a living, really.
Right.
And I, in corporate America, my journey was sales as well. How do you feel about the sales culture and how it relates to going out and socializing, and more importantly, alcohol, and how strong of a pull that substance has on this country and beyond?
Oh, it's alcohol is. That's the one thing about our rehab center is, like, you can't put it near a bar. I was like, well, good luck when you're going to get out of the rehab center. Like, I own a rehab center now, and they're always like, oh, don't show them the alcohol. It's like, good luck, because they sell alcohol in gas stations. They have a tap on the gas pumps in Florida. So it's like, that's not going to happen. But that's the culture, and we have a culture in our country that alcohol is a component and an ingredient of anything that's social and celebratory.
I know.
So not to drink is a choice. I mean, I don't identify as being in recovery. As you'll hear me say that a lot. Like, I just don't drink.
Yeah,
I've made a choice not to. A lot of my friends still drink plenty, and that's just fine with me. But that's a connection, the unhealthy connection. So if an exercise that you can do and do well is, who do you spend, non-family members, who do you spend the most amount of time with? Put 5-10 people. And if you put their attributes together on a piece of paper and you would have gridded out, and you were to say, this person is a heavy drinker or light drinker, drugs, no drugs, makes good money, makes shitty money, net worth, attitude.
Yep.
Personal growth. I mean,
health.
I lost 100 pounds, but I look like a chubber next to you two clowns. You don't make me look better. That's like a lot of contrast. But you will become some average of the people you hang out with.
Yeah.
And that's everything. We're talking about your mentors. Who do you want to be like?
Yeah.
So if you don't know what your one thing is, who do you admire the most and why? and
that's
that'll
a
help
great
you.
point.
That'll help you kind of key. Some people, I mean, I've asked people this, and I had a drug dealer in my rehab center. It's when I kind of wrote my first book, which was called Clean and Killing It. I was like, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was making big money. I had a private driver.
Yeah, the drug dealer did?
Or no, I did.
You did.
He probably did too.
Yeah.
So I said, I had a private driver. I had country clubs that flew all over the world.
Yeah.
And he goes, don't feel bad. He goes, I used to make $250,000 a month selling trucks.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah.
I walked out after the session and we were talking. I said, I could probably teach that guy how to sell something legally.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Because he obviously works hard. Yeah. So if you could channel that in the right direction. You in the preamble talked about earlier in your childhood, you were playing baseball and you would get all the people together to celebrate with keg parties. And someone told you that you're leading but in the wrong way. So you're a leader. Right. You have a lot of experience with leadership both in business and social life. What is your take on leadership and like how can we help people maybe lead in a more effective way that is positive for others, not just like to party?
Well, there's no such thing anymore as privacy. You know that. You put yourselves out there. I admire you. We spoke about this before this thing started. I admire you guys flat out telling the world, like, this is what I'm doing. Like, nobody does that. No one has the courage. I mean, very few people. But one thing I always told people I was mentoring, and I have a relationship, is like, you're always being interviewed. Behave like that. So if you're always being interviewed,
interesting.
Like if I knew I was being interviewed for the best job in the world that I wasn't going to get because I was collecting money from my teammates to buy keg and beers, and the person giving me a job potentially is looking at that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do it. And then Carnegie wrote once a great principle in one of the best books you could ever read is How to Win Friends and Influence
literally
people.
Reading it right now.
Seriously?
I've read it several times. I'm rereading it this year. That's fascinating.
Yeah, you're I'm not surprised. I told you you cannot read that guy. You cannot read. I mean, I don't know you that well, Kevin, but you cannot read.
He's a speed reader, so I don't. It's just next level.
But the one thing that makes me so excited is when, and I have a real story attached to this, is you give someone an excellent reputation to live up to. It's one of the principles in the Carnegie book. I had a driver who I loved like a son, and he was Latino. He lived in Lowell. He was a limo driver for me. Then I hired him away because I was spending so much money on limos because nobody could drive. At least we're that responsible, and we were just dropping big money. So I hired him full time. I bought a big Mercedes Sprinter, and the kid was always late.
Interesting.
Always. And I literally told him, I said, I am literally going to fire you, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
If you're late again, I just can't handle it anymore. Be
this
open
was
in
that black
day,
Mercedes.
and I'd have 6 guests. Yeah. And we'd be waiting there, and he'd be in bed still. And what I did one day, instead of firing him, because I didn't want to fire him, I caught him doing something well. I said he was on time. He was early. And I said, you know what, Tony? One thing I appreciate about you is that you're really proud about what you do, and you're on time.
Interesting. And he locked in on that.
I called him On Time Tony.
On Time Tony.
And
wow, you Miyagi'd him.
Totally transformed in an instant, just like that. And in Recreation, in my books, I talk about give yourself that reputation. And if you want to be a leader, and not a leader in the wrong way like I had been, be a leader, step up and do the things like take care of your body and be responsible. Like if you're doing things that you're not proud of, that the world would see, that might be a short little message to not do that.
I always say, I have so many quotes that go hand in hand with what you're saying, but it's like Joe Rogan, be the hero of your own story. Yep. But another thing I asked Alan the other day is like, would you date yourself? And from the aspect of, I like to surround myself with quality people. And I think I would date myself because I'm trustworthy. I'm all the things that I want to be. I'm sure there's other things that I'm going to work on. But of course, what you think you are is so much more important than what you actually are, if you're willing to work towards that.
So what you aspire to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I always say, if you're the CEO of a company, but you're really, in your mind, you're a bass fisherman and that would make you the most happy, that's what you should do.
Right.
What you think you are. Like what you think you are. I think I'm a bass fisherman, even though I'm making $100 million at this company.
Yeah.
Go be a bass fisherman then.
For sure. And if you are, there's a lot of ways you can go about doing that.
Right.
And you can monetize bass fishing too,
right,
if you master the craft well enough.
You can monetize anything.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. It's like there's a way, if you could speak about, and I'm not actually, if you can speak about anything for an hour,
Yeah.
you can write about it. If you can speak for anything for an hour, you can write a book about it, or you can at least do blogs and podcasts like you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Those can turn into chapters. Those chapters can turn into lessons, and those lessons people will pay for.
Yep.
Because
people want to learn what
like doing what you did is something that you can monetize. Like, because this information is useful. But when you talk about who am I and the who are you, like the one thing I didn't like almost instantly when they said, I am, when you go to a meeting, he's like, my name is Joe Blow and I am an alcoholic. I was saying, I'm not comfortable with that concept because that's a subconscious command.
Yeah.
Right.
To
saying
be
that I am
such.
this, you're labeling yourself.
Yeah, and I believe people have embedded inside them an incredible human potential.
Yep.
Because it's just that one little switch, that one little new connection, add, delete, and modify your connections, and that one little switch, and you put that right formula together, and you're giving yourself a reputation to live up to, and you are labeling yourself a winner, a leader in the right way, you'll get movement. And then you got to figure out that this is the problem. Just that a lot of people just do is they first of all won't do what you've done, and then they won't do the research and how how do you reverse engineer a successful business about your passion. I mean, it's something you can do.
Oh, for sure.
In my mind.
So I consider you a huge mentor when it comes to monetizing businesses, running a business, leadership, especially when it comes to finance, because you worked in the financial industry for so long. How many years? Like 30?
25 years.
25
to the
years,
day.
almost 30. Okay, 25 years.
Literally to the day.
Interesting. So you spent your life making money and around money transactions. Mm-hmm. So financial mastery is definitely in your repertoire. Yep. That is something that I have yet to master, wealth creation. I'm working on it. I did some good work in corporate America, but I'm working on monetizing my passions, helping the world, having a positive impact. Napoleon Hill, as I know you're a fan of him, he wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. He says life insurance is one of the only things in life that has to be sold. It's never just bought. What's your take on that? And what do you think? I always say nothing changes until something moves, and until something.
Take it easy.
Knocking over the mic. Until something is influenced, right? So if me being in this room influences you to want to be in better shape, I'm selling you health, which is a beautiful thing. What's your take on influence, sales, and life insurance specifically? Because I remember you telling me that you used to frame it like a movie. Like, how do you want your life to be if it was a movie? Can you go into that?
Well, yeah, we used to call it the simulator. Like I said, and the one issue with, Kevin, if you could say, hey, throw him a softball that he can answer a question to.
Yeah.
That would be the question, because I'm literally a national expert at that. And I don't even make money doing it anymore, but the psychology behind people buying financial products, it's cognitive dissonance. And that's when your actions and your values are in conflict. Your brain will manufacture an excuse. Yes. All right, and that's why we have fat doctors that smoke.
Yes.
These are people that know, they know not to, and they know all the right things to do. They don't do it anymore because they've seen people that smoke and that eat badly that live to 90.
Yeah, but those are the exceptions, not the rule.
Correct. I mean, in financial services, like, you never see the 65-year version of you. No one's there speaking for that person as an advocate. So I had to put the cook in the kitchen. I had to bring it age 65 as an advocate. Like, I'm speaking for your 65-year-old self, because you're not doing the things. You're living for today, so you don't see through that lens of a 25-year lens. So that's what cognitive dissonance, what you have to do is get your values and your actions in alignment, and that a lot of times means for young families having insurance, or for people that have young babies and kids having college plans. Like, nobody wants to put that.
Yeah. Well, they want to, but they aren't doing it, and they're not taking the action. So how would you get them to take that action? You would bring their 65-year-old self in and say, this person's going to be upset with you, and you did it in a way that, like, they're moving.
Well, it's actually very powerful when you can get them in the mindset, when you get them out of their own body almost, and looking at the thing as a simulation. Okay. So if you took your financial life right now, and life is I call it la la land, the ideal world, nothing bad happens, you die in your last dollar, your kids went to great colleges, everyone had good jobs, no one got sick. Okay, that didn't happen to me. All right. Right. It doesn't. So the simulation in my own life was at a 7-figure income. I had several homes, way over 1 million miles traveling in the air. I had a business that was doing over $10 million in revenue, and when I go in, and all of a sudden I got to sell my company, so my income goes away. So what else goes away? So there's a ripple effect of that simulation. So when you get sick, like I did, you lose your income. So if I worked for Hewlett Packard, I'd lose my income. So there's a ripple effect of that. Not only you lose the income, but you lose your benefits, you lose your retirement contribution, you lose all your savings programs, and it's devastating. So if you can tell the story in a simulation, so there's two people, one person does this and the other person does that, you can simulate that result in anything. You can simulate someone's dietary changes. You know that. You've helped me. I lost 100 pounds. When you hang around with a fitness model,
right?
That's what happens, right?
Down in Boston, you were taking me around. This is my fitness model friend. It was like a bridesmaids crew. Or whatever.
Worst case scenario, you meet better looking women.
Again, Alan doesn't need any more boosting of his ego. I don't support it, but
you can simulate that, and you can simulate that in doing like something you were telling me, Kevin. You were video editing last night, and you were moved that you were working on your own play.
Yeah.
Your music was inside you. Now it's not anymore. So there's a whole amount of pride that happens when people do what they want to do, and you can figure out how to make money doing it. It's when you really struck gold.
Especially when, like I said, I visualized the moment. So for those who don't know what T-Mac's talking about, last night I was editing a video, watching the Bruins game, and I literally just started crying. And you can judge me if you want. I don't care. Because I was so happy. I was overwhelmed with happiness that I'm doing my thing. And if you haven't found your thing, that's why you should listen to stuff like this, because this will help you find your thing, whatever your thing is.
And more importantly, it'll keep you on track as well, because you don't go to the gym once and be fit for life.
Right.
You got to keep going to the gym. I would consider this a gym for the mind. We have people like you who can come in and give different perspectives. Every time we have a conversation, we get new distinctions. I get better every damn time, and I hope every listener does as well.
Right.
So I did have one more question, not one more question, but I had another one that I really want to ask, because it's a good segue to what I just asked you. It's what I honestly believe that, let's say when I talk to someone about fitness, natural fitness, I can almost tell like immediately that they don't really know what I know. There's a lot of tells, as you know. I'm sure you realize that when someone hasn't mastered finance and wealth creation, you can kind of tell right away that they don't really know what they're talking about. What do you think is the primary misunderstanding about money and wealth for people that you notice? Like, what's the one or two things where it's like, wow, if they knew this, they would be so much better off in the long run?
I got that. That's an easy one. Okay. So there's no magic bullet. There's no secret stock. There's no anything. The industry, helping a kid write a book called The More Money Movement, and it was so good that I kind of slapped my name on there, because as we were writing it, because his dad was an insurance agent, financial planner. His father's father was a financial planner. He's your age. I'm almost 50. So we have 4 generations almost. He and I are basically on a generation. Like, I could be your older brother. So I said, what's the commonality between, of all the people I ever met, it amazed me that people make plenty of money. They make plenty of money. There's tons of money here in New England. I've been living in Jacksonville for the last year. Like, that's definitely one of the problems. The other problem, the first thing in the more money movement is the more money mindset. Like, the mindset is people are talking about, like, people are taking money advice. The industry, a lot of times, is, I've been in it for 25 years. It's an industry where people with money get their advice from people that don't have money. So people without money tell people with money what to do with their money. Yeah. Like, a lot of those people don't have any money, and they're taking their advices. And the second thing is that the more money, if you want to have more money, you got to look at where your money's going. You got to look at when you're unknowingly and unnecessarily transferring money a lot of times from your net worth to the financial institutions in the form of fees, to banks in the form of interest, to the government in the form of taxes, to insurance companies in the form of uncompetitive premiums. So these transfers can be eliminated, and I didn't realize this is going to be a financial thing, but that's kind of what I was trained in. Like, if you just eliminate the transfers, and that's what the more money movement's about. It's not about picking a better stock or having me manage your money, okay? Because there's a lot of probability in that too. Because the second part of the more money mindset is just to take your emotions out of investing. The last 10 years, the stock market has done 12%. People in the stock market have done 4%.
Yeah.
Because
they pull out at the wrong time.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, they all say this. Yes, when they all say yes, when their money's going down, they go, "Cash me out. I don't care." I've seen it 100 times. Yeah. They do it every time. It's like, well, they come back. It comes back every single time. Until it doesn't. But it always has.
It always has come back. I had a friend in '08 who lost a buttload of money, and he stayed in, and he made it all back and then some. But most people lost their shirt, pulled out, and he's nearly a millionaire now, and he's my age, and it's like, good thing you didn't pull out, man. Luckily, he didn't have to, because he had enough liquid cash to survive. So that's another thing. I always say when you back yourself into a corner, it's tough to think long term. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, I don't think $1 million is a lot of money anymore.
Yeah.
Well, $1 million pays you about $3,000 a month of interest. That's $36,000. That's not a lot of money. That's a 3% yield. So people are like, money is about cash flow. Okay, there's a big difference between people that have affluence and people that have money. Like people that have affluent fly first class. People that have money fly in their own plane.
Oh, what a quote!
People that are affluent fly in someone else's plane. Yeah. Okay, I flew up here on American Airlines first class. I do not own that airplane. Okay,
Yet.
So but it's strategies, and you say it, and you said I heard you already twice say it, that success leaves clues. There are patterns of wealth creation. All wealth is created in my mind from owning things, and the one thing you own and one thing you have control over is your own time. And what you do with that time is yours. And if you own that, you're in the command. You're in charge. I think that's huge.
That is huge, especially since if you want to do something that you're going to do your life, like you spend your life doing, it probably takes, if you're working 40 hours a week, this is what I always say. If all of your drive and all of your motivation is gone when you go to a job you don't like every day, when you get home, you're just trying to ramp up to go back to the job you don't like tomorrow. You're not worried about starting your side business. And a business, starting anything, is full time. You should be all in or all out, and it's super hard to do both.
Well, we talked about you're going to spend a third of your life in a bed.
Yeah. Can you go into that?
You're going to spend a third of your life in a bed.
Right.
So every other ad on Facebook and social media is, if it's not about making $1 bazillion, about comfortable bed.
Right.
Because a third of your life is going to be in a bed, but more than a third of your life is going to be working. What's your connection with work and how you make your living? And if you add in all the time you spend talking about it, thinking about it, and doing it and getting to and from it, it's probably in the 7/10 range.
Right. Yeah. Scary. It is scary.
So arguably, work's more important than bed, than sleep. Because if you don't work, you won't have a bed to sleep in.
Interesting point.
So why if that's the case, and then every expert under the sun will tell you that someone's work life will directly impact their happiness. Yeah. If someone's not happy at work, have you ever seen it? If you're not, like in your own case, you just resigned. Right. You told me, so you resigned because you weren't happy. I'm sure,
of course,
right? And you've already been on your path, so no one's taking you. You won't be able to go back to any work for anybody. You're done. I can't either. I'm ruined forever. You will be too. You'll never go back to work for someone.
Once that standard is raised, it's tough to go back. There are a few people on the planet that I would work for, just my heroes only. We'll see.
Yeah, but when you work, when you make the decision to work, you're trading units of your time to a corporation for units, for units of their dollars to deliver their business plan. If you own your own path and you own your own time, and you can figure out how to find out what your one thing is, monetize it, repurpose, monetize it, and live a life that matters, you create a level of happiness that will ripple through that 7/10 of your life that will go into better sleep, better time to exercise. Being healthy is expensive. Yeah, you know that. Yeah, I mean, just eating right. In terms of time. Yeah, especially here in New England. It's really expensive to live here. Yeah. And being healthy, and it's just expensive.
Yeah. But it's the way to be. It's the way to be because, again, this is the thing I'm probably most passionate about. You have 80 years, 90 years if you're lucky. And then eventually you're probably going to get to the point where you're thinking, like you said, I did this all wrong. I did this whole thing wrong.
Right.
Why don't you just avoid that part and figure out it early? Like we're sitting down with a young up-and-coming entrepreneur. And it's like he already has it in his head what he wants to do. He has a 10-year, yeah, he's got a 10-year head start.
Right.
So maybe he won't bog himself down by buying that nice car that he can afford now because he has a new job. I talked about that where I was at a job where I was making $13 an hour. And then I got a job making $15 and I thought I was rich. So I bought a new car. Yeah. But guess what? Now if I'm not making that $15 an hour, I'm not going to be able to pay for the car. I can't quit my job because this, that, and the other thing. It's like there has to be an easier way for people to just find your... What would you say to somebody who is super young? Is it better to just start dipping your pen in different ink and testing out the waters and seeing what you're truly passionate about?
Well,
because I know you said
let me ask you a question. Let me turn a question into a question, like a good salesman would. By the way, that's a little life lesson. If you don't know the answer to a question, just ask somebody else. So when's the best time to plant a tree?
The best time to plant a treat.
Yeah.
I was going to say after you've accomplished
20 years
something.
ago.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
When's the next best time?
20
today.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, if you want the triple Lindy, I don't know if you've seen back. It's an old movie, but if you want freedom, free time, right? You want economic potential, and you want to feel good about what you do because you love what you do. Then you need to own your time. If you own your time, and you figure out what your purpose is, and you learn how to monetize it. And if I could give any advice to anyone, because I did in 48 years I wrote 0 books. Last year I wrote 4 books, and I literally became and I didn't even apply for this. I became an expert in an industry I didn't even know existed a year earlier. Writing the book, and I wrote the last book I wrote it in 7 days. It's called Write Your Way to Recreation. It's how to monetize your purpose. It's how in 7 days, and it's a 7 day guided way to. And one of the great ways to write a book is to do interviews like this, and you get the text transcribed, and then you can have a writing partner. If you're not a good writer, just find someone to help you write it. You're a good writer. I saw your writing; it's pretty good. I don't know about you. I'm a terrible.
Not like him.
I'm a horrible writer. I have my writing partner is Ann. She writes all. We talk on the phone, and she interviews me. She records it. We transcribe it. Yeah, I mean, I can write a little bit. Not to the point where. But this book we wrote this book in 7 days, so we had already written 3 together, and we got the science down. But it's a way to make yourself an authority on a topic. So you own what you're passionate about. If you can talk about it, you can start to interview about it on blogs and podcasts. You can always get on a podcast somewhere or do your own. And then those are lessons, and those lessons are valuable to somebody, like in fitness. Where you guys are, you're actually starting a new podcast. Like that could be a business,
right? Teaching
people how to do what you've done. You came in, I don't know, behind the scenes, you're seeing cameras and microphones. This is a real operation here. It's not 2 clowns just showed up.
Well, 2 clowns did show up, and we brought a bunch of stuff with us.
2 clowns that kicked my butt.
Oprah Winfrey has a quote that I always go back to. Do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do. I want to piggyback on what you said, which is keep your expenses low while you're young so that you can start focusing on what you want to master early on and or dabble quite a bit. When I was a kid, everyone was told to go to college. Kevin, you remember this. You chose not to go to college, which I would argue is a potentially good route for some people. What happens when an entire generation was told to go to college and get a degree? I always talk about the power of mentors and heroes. You already said, figure out what you admire and why. So to really bring all this stuff I just said down to earth here, we were all told to go to college, and we all were put into college grew at 8% over the last decade when inflation was only 3%. So the industry, supply and demand, you get it. So when everyone's trying to go to college, all the colleges are filling up, they jack their prices up, everybody gets a degree, it devalues the degrees. Now, I have an engineering degree and an MBA, so it's quite valuable, and I chose to chase my dreams after having post-traumatic growth like you went through. But what do we say to someone who's in a mountain of debt because they went to college like they were told to do when they were a kid, and they want to work their way out of this hole so that they can actually eventually live the life of their dreams that they designed rather than the one that was kind of thrown at them?
That's a tough question because I never finished college, and I drove to the airport the other day with a guy who had an Uber driver, and he's telling me about his car, and he had this car. He drove it to the airport. It's a nice car. He said, "Yeah, I paid $1,000 for the car." I said, "How's that possible?" He goes, "I bought it from a junkyard because my other car that I was driving with Uber, because he was making big money doing Uber, was dying. The engine was dying. So he brought a junky car for $1,000. He took the engine out of the old car and put it in the new car, the broken car. So he turned, not the engine, but he took all the parts and put the new engine in his car. I said, how'd you figure out how to do that? He goes, I watched a YouTube video.
Jesus.
He's a guy, and he has property, and he says, I learned how to sell things on the internet. I mean, college is, if you can't go to college, there's nothing stopping you from being anything you want to be. But if you go to college, there's nothing wrong stopping you from anything you want to be. It's experience. It's part of your environment. And I wish I honored college. I had a baseball scholarship, and I didn't honor it. I actually am embarrassed about what I did in school. I should have. I didn't finish. No, I didn't. No, I didn't even go to college. Of course. Yeah. I mean that's shameful. I mean that's one of the. I'm most embarrassed of that probably in my whole life.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I've been through some stuff. You'll see it in the bloopers.
Right.
Oh, went by a mile. It's like honor your chance. I mean, play full out, and that's I know how important your commitment level is in doing this. Is you've paid the ultimate sacrifice. You've laid it all on the line. But you can get. By the way, you can get the great. I don't even call myself a coach anymore. I call myself more of a strategist. Like, what's the strategy? The strategist always beat the tactician. Tactics are you got to start from purpose to mission to vision. I talk about vision. This is my vision wallet. So This is I call it the vision and recreation wallet. This is a wallet I have in my pocket. I showed it to you. But that, you have an app that you take your images and you visualize them. So, one thing you put in your wallet other than money is your vision, because you touch this 8 to 10 times a day. Yep. And it's a subconscious reminder of your vision. Yeah, I mean, I got my airplane here. It's one of the few things I still want. And I want to go to New Zealand. I want to go to Egypt, and my books and speaking about it and coaching. But it's all strategy. So one of my strategies is to connect with my vision. And one of my other strategies is to talk when I talk like this to people like you, I got to be on my game too. So it gets me better. Yeah. I'm sure you don't go to a fitness show and show up, with eating badly the week before. You got to be ready. You got to check your notes and you got to prime. Yeah. And that's all about, having that strategy, and you're just going to be on your game.
I love it. Go ahead. No, go ahead. No.
All right. I know you like your questions. So you said you got to prime yourself. Every single morning, and people who listen to this podcast know this, I have a flashcard that I write out. I write out my purpose statements. I write out my critical numbers of days alcohol-free, numbers of podcast allies created, number of mentor meetings, number of gym session collaborations, all these different things I write down. I rate myself as also. I say what gets measured gets managed. Peter Drucker said that in his book, as you know, the quote. But I live by that, and so I measure my dream team, my relationship status, my weight, my bank account balance, my mentors. I rate myself, and you actually, believe it or not, it's so funny. I write mentors, and I write let's say 6 out of 10, and then I write in parentheses a mentor that I haven't reached out to in too long. You were in parentheses for a long time.
Yeah, because we connected. Yeah, we totally connected, and I saw you. Someone who was far more disciplined than I was at the same age. I was very proud of the things you've done, and the Peter Drucker also said that all the purpose of business is client creation. And innovation. Everything else is expense. Yeah, innovation. Everything else is expense. So, whatever you end up doing, make sure someone will buy it. Yeah. And if monetizing your talent, your unique gifts, I call them. What are you unique? What's uniquely yours? And clearly, you come in here you chewed on 25 packs of bubble gum. You're all pumped up. You got your cameras, you're setting up, but you're passionate, and that's infectious, and people love that. So that's your A game. And don't work on your weaknesses, because if you work on your weaknesses, you're going to have strong weaknesses. Play to your strengths, man. Play to your strengths. Yeah, I mean, not a good looking dude like you. I was like the goalie for the dart team. I'm not. You got some people get blessed with whatever they get. You got to play with what you got.
Goalie for the dart team. I like that. I've never heard that.
It says sold insurance for 25
There you
years.
go.
Back in Florida, down in Jacksonville, we were in the pool. We were talking about all this, and you called me painfully perfect and poor. So there's a couple things I want to say. So you're a mentor to me. I remember you got to kind of give your mentors sort of a rating of brutal honesty that they're allowed to kind of give you.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we did this at that book publishing seminar. I gave you a 10 to tell me what's real.
Sure.
I think that's important. But 2 questions. So the first one is going back to priming. What do you do in the morning to set yourself up for a successful day? And then you said you have several mentors. I wanted to go into that.
Cool. That's a really, really good. The timing is excellent because one of my things on my vision board, if you see it, would be improving my body. Okay. So like you're going to be my fitness mentor.
Yes.
Because I had a transplant, so a lot of people don't realize that 13 months ago I was in hospice, terminally ill, like ready, waiting to die. I was 100 pounds overweight. My body was out to here. I could show you pictures. And so one thing I do almost every day is I've kind of really connected with yoga and meditating. Most major high-profile CEOs meditate. It's just a place to slow your mind down. And I've really connected with yoga, but it's been a part of my transformation. I've lost 110 pounds now. I'm more, I'm a high-wired dude, even for an old guy now, I guess, around you people. But but it slows your brain down. If nothing else, you can work. I used to say work on your business, not in it. Like my business of my own human potential is when I get outside my body, and I do yoga and the meditating at the end of the yoga course. During is my brain slows down and things pop into my mind. It discerns into me, just boom. And I've had
work on your life, not in it, or both. You got to do both.
I mean, mentorship, and that's a good segue into mentorship, which your mentors are going to be suggesting things to you. Like you'll never hear me say, like you might be right and I might be wrong. Yeah. All I'm telling you is my results. I'll totally shoot you straight on that. Yeah, you might be right. I mean, maybe launching a little later. There's two people. There's one person that launches it and fixes it while the airplane's going up in the air, which is very dangerous if it doesn't work right. Yeah. Just crashes. Some people make sure the airplane goes up and they test drive it. I mean, I'm a launcher. I always have been. Ready, fire, aim. I just always took a lot of quick shots. I still do. Very risky in business, but my mentors would always suggest to me. I had 3 mentors. One was a guy named Ted Harmon, who I love. He was the guy who taught me how to knock on doors and make a friend out of a complete stranger. That's even though you're trying to sell them life insurance. Try that.
I can only imagine.
You did that with me. Mine's the life insurance company. But you did that with me. Like right away, you and I connected.
I'm professional trained in socializing. Yeah, and Ted taught me how to Ted taught me how to fish. It's an old adage: teach a man to fish, feed him a lifetime. Yeah. Ted taught me how to fish, and then my middle mentor, my mentor I had in my late 20s and 30s was Roger Tuttle, who taught me how to be a businessman. He cleaned me up as well as he could because I was pretty gruff.
What do you mean by that?
I swore a lot. I had vulgarity in my life. I still swear. I try not to. Roger taught me how to look at a business as the profit. The purpose of business is to create profit, which creates security. The best thing you can do for the poor is not become one of them.
Yes, Mark Twain.
Mark Twain said that.
Yeah,
it's like because you can't help anybody.
Yeah, if you're poor, you're not going to help anybody.
And so Roger taught me how to be an entrepreneur. And Roger lives right next to me. He moved next to me. I mean, at one time I would literally throw Roger off a cliff if I was in the room with him for over an hour. He just drove me. He was very, very hard on me, and he always admits it. And he had a 20, but he always came back. He always circled back when he beat me into submission to the point where I wrote my letter of resignation once. The phone would ring at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. He goes, "I was hard on you today. I love you. I'm sorry." I was like, "Oh, that's okay, Roger." He just had a good coach does that, right? Yeah. And then it's just I'm so blessed to have both these men in my life still. Howard Cowan, who is like the number one person that did what I did in insurance. He was a general agent for Mass Mutual, and who's a company I just love out of Massachusetts. A mutually owned company owned by our policyholders. But Howard taught me how to be a high level thinker, to be a real opinion leader and to put yourself out there and take your chances. Put your money where your mouth is, and eat at your own restaurant. Remember, I tell you, that's going to be one of my next books. Like, if you want to bank on somebody, you're going to bank on yourself. Yeah. And those mentors, to this day, if I'm ever stuck, and Howard and Roger were right there by my side when I was leaving the world. They were both there all the time. And there's some dark nights in those hospitals, Mayo was like a hotel. The other one in Boston was a dump.
I really want everyone to hear this, though, because we had such an emphasis on school growing up, at least I did, and I think high schools perpetuate that into college and all that. I always say you work your butt off in middle school to get into the right classes in high school. You work your butt off in high school to get into the right college, and then you work your butt off in college to then go work your butt off for some other company. And it's like you didn't finish college. You did say you regret that, and I love my college. I love my college experience for many reasons. But like you have mentors and you're self-educated. Like there are so many ridiculously successful people that I know who learned through osmosis via mentors, and they're far more successful than the people who did go to college in a lot of cases. And I just want people to realize that there's another option, and why not merge the two, be the best of both worlds, and find mentors. If you don't have mentors in each area of life, you're messing up. I'm sorry, but you are. Like they're powerful.
They're everything. I mean, you've come up with this on your own, I think, because you've sought them out. But if you're not advancing yourself, the Wheel of Life is one of the exercises we have at freerecovery.com, which is our website, and it's the Wheel of Life. It's like it's got 6 or 8 areas: your health, your finances, your relationships, your spiritual, your business, and you measure that on a scale of 1 to 10. But you should have a mentor in every single wedge. They're there. I mean, mentors want a mentor. Like I'm literally obligated to mentor somebody. This might shoot me in the foot, but I'll get a phone call from someone saying, "Remember you said you'll mentor somebody? Mentor me." Like they'll call you out on it, and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, I gotta kind of do it now." But yeah, well, you already do. You're a bear, man. There's no getting around you.
Yeah.
Total.
He
comes in like the Tasmanian devil.
Trust me,
the
I
two
know.
of you guys.
I woke up the other day to 24 text messages from him.
24.
He's a psychopath.
Yeah.
I told Kevin, I'm like, I'm too hard on you, man. I'm so sorry. The next day, I'm right back at it. Like, I just don't stop. We gotta get after it. This world's not gonna save itself. I hit you up a bunch in the last few months, here and there. You've been all over the world. You were in France one time. You video messaged me from a train, like that thing doing 80 or 90 miles an hour.
300 miles.
300 miles an hour. Okay, I'm making stuff up. So 300 miles an hour. Crazy.
Like an airplane. Yeah.
So you've been traveling. You said you spoke in 10 countries. What countries are those? Tell us about those experiences.
Well, I'll tell you why I did it. Because I had plenty of money, I had plenty of freedom, and I was just so heavily connected to my vicious circle of not only bad connections with alcohol and drugs and whatever that did for me. Is this my career? Like I sold my soul, so I never went wherever I wanted. I only went to places that I was going for business.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to do I wanted to take my message strategically to parts of the world where I wanted to see.
Love it.
Integration. Yeah, think about it. Think about if you have a message that you want to share with the world, and I believe everyone has a book in them. Everyone has a message that they can share with the world, and if you can speak about it, you can speak about it for money. And and I have a few topics I'm pretty adept at speaking at. Recreation is the message that I'm trying to have people like worldwide connect with. And there's I don't know if you know Mark McDonald from Venice Nutrition. Like myself, and a guy from Jeunesse, a guy named Samson Lee is talking about getting that message of recreation to the world. So I've been to Scandinavia, I've been to Norway, Denmark, and Sweden.
I hit you up. You were in Mexico with your son.
Costa Rica. Yeah, I've been in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I've been in
That looked like a fun
France, Germany. I was in Oktoberfest.
Dude, it was like
Yeah.
a foot of snow outside, and I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, the three things I've learned in my journey is, and the first one I heard, I didn't learn, but I connected with it. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Love it.
So the opposite of rehab, like when I went to rehab, but everyone's like, "Oh, you're a disease. You got to rehabilitate." I was like, "Rehabilitate what?" Like I'm broken in a billion pieces. Like there's no putting that back together. My identity, my body, like literally, I was on the brink of death. I already died. My hero died anyway. So the opposite of rehabilitation is recreation. Recreation was the only option for me. And then the journey in addiction is like I want to be in recovery, which is important, which is I think healing. But I think it's more important to re-enter, to come back, to make that comeback and never quit.
Never quit.
Powerful stuff, man.
I think it's your recreation was a necessary one. But what is recreation to somebody who's going to like a 9 to 5 that they just they're not happy? What is recreation to them? Because that sounds very overwhelming to somebody who might not be as cognizant of their thoughts, their deep thoughts like we are.
They're in that lukewarm middle potentially where they're unhappy, but they're not unhappy enough to do something about it.
Day goes by, never comes back. Remember that. It's like a hotel room that no one slept in last night. It's over. That hotel lost the ability to rent that room forever, and your days are those hotel rooms. So yeah. So I mean, when you get to the point where you need to make that decision, it could be one of two things. I always say, because I'm consulting with businesses on how to recreate their own brand. Like, who's to say you can't come back?
Right.
And lots of businesses have done it, and so it could be stepping your game back up, where you are. I call it either a game changer or a stadium swap. If it's a game changer, you're where you are, you're just stepping up your game. All right, I'm going to be a better accountant. I'm going to be a better dietitian. I'm going to be a better doctor. I'm going to be a better car salesman. It doesn't make a difference. All work is honorable. Or it's what I call stadium swap. New game, new sport, new stadium, your rules. And that's that. It's not catching on. I was like, the stadium swap. I always tell it to people, like, what the hell is that? And then they ask you, well, are you making money with it? I go, some. I think there's a big dollar amount. Hopefully someone watching could kind of connect with me. Let's get on board with a stadium swap.
No, I love it.
Yeah, swap it out, man. You stadium swapped, right?
Right.
That's like, you gave me a pink slip.
Right.
Beat it.
Right.
Take it easy.
I have a question. So earlier we brought up something and you said, if people are telling you you're crazy, you're doing it right.
Yeah.
But how do you decipher maybe you are just, like if I told you I'm going to open a all-you-can-eat dog buffet, you might say, that's crazy. I know, don't take that. That's copyrighted.
That's a pretty good idea.
But say it was truly a terrible idea.
You should, if you feel like doing that, you should open up a restaurant. It's like driving a brand new car off a cliff every month. You have a lot more fun doing that. So, I mean, I own the Ipswich Clam Bake Company, which is a great restaurant.
Right.
I also had one that lost a ton of money. It was what I would say to you and Alan is, like, if you think it's a little nuts, I think you're kind of catching fire a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's a lot of nuts, you might be really catching fire. If no one talks to you anymore, you might want to go back to whatever the hell you're doing. we run ads. We write ads and we write copy. And that's a lot of fun, seeing what ad pulls and stuff like that. When people call in pissed off, I know. If they call in pissed off, you've done something right.
Well, you got them fired up.
You always want to
and those are the people that are calling in. So if you get one person who's pissed off, how many people did it move in a positive direction that aren't calling in?
Right.
Or whatever.
Well, Tony talks about pattern interrupts.
Yeah.
It's like anytime you want to write a good ad, just interrupt someone's pattern.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you spend a third of your life in bed. You spend over 70% of your life working.
Right. I'm clicking.
And if work makes you shit, if you don't like your work life, you're gonna have a crappy night's sleep. So you pretty much your whole life is revolved around not your work necessarily, but your purpose. Like, you go to bed and put your head on the pillow and you love what you do, and you manage to somehow get paid to do it.
That's the thing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Golden ticket.
That's
I
very
make
cool.
money while you're sleeping. After my last speech, I made $600. It's the most I've ever made in 1 hour, which is cool. I felt like $1 million that night because I made money helping people. Right. Doing what I do best, which is fitness and success, this kind of stuff. Beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. I feel like everyone could do that. We're in the entrepreneurial revolution. We really are.
And it's the easiest time now.
Well, I'll tell you what I would tell Alan. What you guys are doing, and Kevin, you guys are trying to figure it out. And what happens when you're trying to figure something out? You're going to make some money. Guess what's going to happen with that money?
Gonna go back in the business?
You're just gonna spend it. You'll forget what you spent it on. If you made 10 times what you're making right now, and the same as you're making, you sleep on a little less bed. You make the adjustments, but the discovery is in what you've learned that you can monetize forever. And what it's like adding these ingredients to your master product, and this might be one of them. Another one might be doing trade shows or going to school or putting some ads on Facebook I mean, everyone's always got a secret bullet. Radio still works.
We've got some good ideas coming up this spring with my fitness show, the photo shoots, and then going to colleges.
Always innovating.
Oh, we're always innovating.
Well, if your product is people that want to be happier and want to look good, that's a pretty damn good market. That's pretty much everybody.
I tell Kevin this a lot. I say, we have something that everyone wants. We're in shape, and we did it naturally, and we know how to do it. I know how. I call it 3 things. You got your why, your how, and your what. You've got mindset, mechanics, and measurement. And I'm designing the speech called the 5 fundamental pillars of natural fitness. That's going to make it so effing easy that you can't miss it.
Yeah, you have any idea what the right people would pay for that? If you make it easy for them to connect with, and everything, all the keys through connecting, and that's reinforcing your principles. But the whole world wants to. If you want a good direct mail campaign, you know what direct mail is? Yeah. You put it put an old-fashioned stamp on it and handwrite it. If you handwrite it, and you do 1,000 of them handwritten, 1,000 people are going to open that envelope. 100% opt-in, and put a little plastic mirror in there and say, look in the mirror. Do you look the way you want? Are you happy? Do you like your life? If you don't like your life, call me. You guys can have that one. It's a freebie.
Look at that. Next level.
Boom, yeah.
So everyone out there, this is what happens when you have mentors who have lived a long life and they have tons of distinctions. How are we doing? 6 minutes? 6 o'clock. Oh, it's 6 o'clock. Yeah. But you said you had to be out of here.
You got 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
I'm having fun.
Perfect. All right, I love it. So that's what we're doing. So I had a couple more things written down here that I really wanted to bring on. Friends, family, and intimate relationships. I always say be a friend first and a mentor and a coach second. I think that's really important because you want to be helped by your peak performance partners, your dream team, your intimate relationship. You want to help coach each other a little bit, but be a girlfriend or a boyfriend first because constructive criticism will destroy relationships and rapport. That said, if it's mentors, coaches, and heroes, I believe you should be a mentor, a coach, and a hero first, and a friend second. And I think that's the key distinction, because I think that a lot of people think they have mentors because they have a friend who's in better shape than them, and they're like, oh, that's my mentor in that pillar. But it's different because they're your friend. They don't want to break rapport. With a mentor, it's like a permission slip of saying, you know what, Terrance, give it to me real. It's gonna hurt in the moment, but it's gonna be best for me in the long run. If it's my girlfriend, for example, I don't necessarily want that every day, right? So I feel like we need to separate the two. How do you feel about that?
Do you think the board members at General Motors are all friends of the CEO?
Oh, probably not.
They're not.
Yeah,
They're not permitted to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, your mentors are more like your board. Many of them are friends. They travel together. They collaborate on ideas. They do subcommittees. There's an intimate relationship, but they're not friends. They might become friends, but the relationship is, I have a job to do. Yeah. And if you're asking me to give you guidance and wisdom and try to avoid, look at life. Life's a golf course, right? And I'll end on this topic because I got to go because I actually have to go to movies.
No worries.
So if life is the golf course, right? The person that you're mentoring is the golfer. Yes. Tactics are clubs. Tactics are clubs. And hit this one, don't hit that one because I've been there. The mentor's the caddy. The mentor tells you what club to hit and where to hit it. Don't hit it too far. Don't hit it too left. Hit it up front here because then when you go in, it's going to be easier. Yeah, a good mentor's a good caddy. A caddy you're not afraid of. A caddy is going to say, hit the 4-iron or I'll quit being your caddy. When Tiger Woods was playing well, his caddy would quit him. And Tiger would hit the club because he didn't want to lose the caddy because the caddy wins the tournaments. Yeah, so you got to listen to your mentors, but you don't want your mentor to be someone who's blowing smoke up your ass. Yeah. That doesn't do anybody any good.
So what's the strategist then in that analogy? That would be like a coach who looked at the results and then the board meeting, right? They look at the results of
the only thing I could teach you both is how to monetize your unique gifts. I mean, I could kind of give you some ideas on how to do that. However you end up selling it, whether you're selling it through mass media or you're selling it through individual relationships, whether you're picking up the phone and calling someone or you're doing some kind of Facebook or some kind of combination, that I don't know. It really doesn't matter. As long as you get your message to people, which is an offer, which they opt into, and they'll end up retaining services, and then you're doing what you like, and people are willing to pay for it, whatever market dictates, right? Yeah. It's worth what it's worth. If you're $600 an hour today, maybe you're worth $20,000. Maybe they're getting it cheap. They're going to be loving it.
better you get, the more value.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if you spoke for one of the colleges and you're on the stage in front of 9,000 people every week, and they're saying, "Oh, that kid, we got him for $600."
Right. You got a bargain. You got a bargain.
I mean, if I was a mentor, I'd tell you to raise your speaking fees. Yeah, because I heard you speak.
Yes.
You're that good. I haven't heard you speak yet, but my suspicion is you're good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, you're giving them way more than $600 worth of value.
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah. What's 1 year of your life worth? You know what I would have paid for one day? All of it.
Fascinating.
All of it.
Love that. Okay, so that's a perfect segue. They say money doesn't buy happiness, and I say this: money does not buy happiness, but the lack of money definitely creates unhappiness. Unless you're gonna.
I'm ready for this because this is what I wanted to hear.
Unless you're going to Alaska and you're gonna catch your own salmon and feed yourself outside of the economic system, money does not create happiness. Trust me, I made enough to where I knew it didn't create happiness. But I can tell you, the lack of money definitely can create unhappiness because it's a lack of freedom. What is your take on that phrase? And your unique circumstances are kind of what we are trying to get people not to do. I have a flashcard in my pocket of the top 5 regrets of the dying. I always shout them out if you want to know them.
I know it.
Oh, he does.
I was dying and I read the book. The number one regret of the dying is to not have the courage to do the things that you were put here on this world to do.
Yeah. Okay, so awesome. So what we kind of are advising in this whole podcast and helping people through their journey, we want them to come with us on this journey.
Yes.
Is what you had sort of done, and you said, what if my whole life was wrong? What's something you can give them where it's like, take that jump, because if you don't and you end up like I did, and God forbid something did happen, and I know this is long, but I'm saying this. So you said days are so important, you never get them back. I always say this, I'm a numbers guy, I'm an engineer, electrical and computer engineer, so if you're lucky enough to live 100 years on this planet, you only get 36,500 days, okay? If you only had $36,500 in your bank account and you could never make another dollar, how carefully would you spend that fucking money? Stop wasting your days. All of us need to stop wasting our days. You can give them that because you did, in your opinion, waste some days. What can we do to make sure they don't?
And then we'll free you so you can go to the movies.
Yeah, I gotta go. I mean, I got to tell you, you get a PhD driving around Ubers. I was in an Uber car this morning, and it was in Jacksonville driving to the airport. I had a half-hour ride, and I don't look at I instantly just see how'd you become? I think Uber's fascinating because Uber brings honor and honorable employment to all mankind that can drive. Like they literally even buy you a car now. So he was like, oh, and I told him about my travels because I'm passionate about travel. He said, I always wanted to go to San Diego or Vegas. He told me both. I said, well, go. He goes, what do you mean? I go, dude, I was laying in a hospital bed. I was going to be dead in a month. Like when I didn't die, first thing I did was I got online and started looking at airline tickets. I want to go see the world. I said, why don't you go call Uber, tell them you want to drive cars in Las Vegas, get a room in Vegas and drive Uber in Vegas, make a living, and then see Vegas and see San Diego. And he looked at me, he goes, I should do that. I go, you should do that. Like, big mistake, little mistake. I'll leave with this. The big mistake is what?
Living a life that you regret.
Yeah. Living a life knowing you could have done it and you didn't. What's the little mistake?
Doing it, screwing it up.
Yeah. For what, a month, a year? Who gives a shit? So you only got a little bit. You lose 365 of the 36,000, not all of them. How'd you like to die with 32 G's in the bank? That's what most people do. They don't spend it. Yeah, you got to take your chances.
That's true.
Yeah, take your chances.
One life. That's just one. You got one life. That's it.
That's it.
Ladies and gents, Terrance, thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome.
It was absolutely great. Do you want to plug the books? Give them. I know you gave them.
No,
but
you go to my website. It's freerecovery.com. You can email me if you have anything you want to talk to me about. It's TMAC at freerecovery.com. And you can friend us on Facebook at Free Recovery.
You have a book coming out soon. Do you know a launch date?
It's Recreating the Hero Within, and it's about the hero's journey, and it's coming out soon, maybe within 6 months.
Beautiful.
You'll find that out when you write your first book. But if you want a copy of Write Your Way to Recreation, I'll email you this one free. For anyone on the podcast, I'll email you the folder. You can have a zip drive of the book.
Beautiful.
And the worksheets on how to write a book in 7 days.
Beautiful.
Sweet.
We will be looking forward to that. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And we will definitely thanks for coming on. I think we should have you on again at some point after some of these books are launched and you.
We'll come down to Florida for sure.
If I get 20,000 requests for that book, I'm going to put my email on auto forward to yours. All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Be good.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.